All right. Hello, everyone. My name is Brandon Thomas, and this is
Tony Bowen.
And we are brothers in Christ, and we are here at my place here in Sumas, Washington.
Way out in the boonies.
Yeah, way out in the country, peace and quiet. And basically the purpose of this day and this time and this video is we just want to share with everyone out there Tony's testimony,
Yes.
His lifelong testimony, how he came to know Jesus Christ as his personal Lord and Savior. And I've seen a lot of testimonies on YouTube and just in my 18 years of being a Christian, meeting people in real life with, some crazy testimonies, some really wild testimonies. But I don't know, Tony's might take the cake, and we just really want to, again, it's not about us, but it's a testimony that I definitely think and we believe needs to be shared. So that's what we're doing here today, is just sharing from our heart about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. So
yes,
Tony,
yes,
let's start just from the beginning. Where were you born?
I was originally born in Puyallup, Washington, at 6:45 p.m. August 13th, 1984. Unfortunately, my mom was a drug addict and prostitute, and I was born with fetal alcohol syndrome. Was addicted to meth and cocaine. And yeah, so I don't remember a whole lot. My very first memory, unfortunately, is my mom and family were, I guess they were having some kind of party. I was 3.5, and there was a lot of drugs going on, people snorting cocaine and drinking and partying. And my dad slammed my mom up against the wall and threw a knife at her throat and tried killing her. And somebody picked me up, took me outside, and put me on the porch, and the door locked, and I was outside screaming and pounding on the door, and then my dad ran out, and he ran away, and that's my first memory. I remember kind of being in an apartment with my mom for a little bit.
Sorry, your first memory is at what age?
3.5.
Okay, 3.5. Go ahead.
And then, I stayed with my aunt, my grandma, between the two of them at one point before I went in foster care at 4.5, 5. And then that's where my story really takes a turn for the... And, but yeah, I basically lived in Puyallup, Pierce County area most of my life.
Okay.
But I went into foster care at 5.
At 5, okay.
4.5, 5.
Got it. All right. So that kind of leads me to how were you raised? You're at 4.5, 5 years old now. You're just entering into foster care, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that whole foster care, experience.
Well, my next memory that I have was I was in a group home, and in this group home there was like 10 of us, and one of the kids, got in trouble at school and got grounded or whatever. And there's a house, the group home, was here, and then behind it was a house that owned the group home, and the lady that was running it, that was their parents. And the kid in the middle of the night went to the house and set it on fire.
Ooh.
And we come running out, and the family, the two older couple, come running out on fire and fell in front of me, about 20 feet in front of me, and died while I watched them scream and cry in pain, and they, until there was no more screaming. And I smelled and heard the bones cracking, and the house completely went up in flames.
Hold on one second. So at what age is this where you see
5 years old.
5 years old, you see two people that own the house come running out of the house on fire and die in front of you? Is that what it...
Yeah. So...
This is my first time hearing all these details too, so...
Yeah.
Sorry, I have to stop him sometimes.
It's all good.
Woo! All right,
so,
go ahead.
the next thing I remember is the sheriff, after talking and asking questions, took me, and the what do you call it? The Child Protective Service people found a foster home for me to go to. So this is my first night in a foster home. The guy's name was Victor, or no, I can't remember. They shortened it, but yeah, his name was Victor.
Okay.
And him and the foster brother that was there, the other foster kid that was in the home, took me in a truck and drove me out in the middle of nowhere in Puyallup and forced me to do things in a sexual way to them. Mind you, this is the same night that I witnessed the murder. So, the burning of the two couple. Right. And then from there, I was removed from that home shortly after a few months. From there, I moved around quite a bit. Didn't stay at any foster home for a long period of time. I've overall been over 20 foster homes, 20 plus foster homes from the age of 5 to 18. Okay. My worst was the Bakers. I lived in Puyallup with them. I was probably 12 years old. I stayed with them for 3 years, but I've been abused every way you can think of, mentally, physically, sexually, emotionally. They were very racist. They were very...
What race were they?
They were white.
They were white, okay.
But they lived deep in, they believed in, black weren't allowed. And
right.
Very prejudiced.
White supremacists.
Yeah, okay. Basically. Okay. And I was watching it, one of the incidences, I was watching a TV show of Martin. And
I used to watch that.
And I was, dancing and doing my thing, and they says, "Oh, you want to be a N-word," and they took me downstairs and locked me in the basement with my legs in a stockade, and said, "You want to be black? I'll treat you like a black person." And I had bread and water for 2 weeks, and I was locked in a stockade down there.
What age again is this?
I was probably 12 or so.
Okay. All right.
There's a lot of things I don't. When I was, to back up just a little bit, when I was 7 and a half, one of the foster homes, Sue and her husband, I don't remember his name. We lived in way out in Graham, Washington, and the kids and their kids and me were out in the woods. We were trying to make a tree house, and we found these 3 perfect trees that made this triangle shaped in the woods, and we were going to make a tree house up high. Okay. And so they were up, clearing the branches, cutting branches to clear a path for the foundation, and I was the brush guy, so I was moving the brush out of the way once they dropped, and the guy had a hatchet, and it slipped out of his hand, and there was a branch above me, and as the hatchet fell, hit the branch and spun, and the flat part of the hatchet hit me right here on the top of the head. And all I remember was a bunch of blood pouring down my face. I remember running to the house, screaming my head off, and then I woke up in the hospital about a month later.
A month later?
Yeah, a month later. Apparently I slipped into a coma. I got a scar on top of my head from the impact, and I don't remember really being 8 or 9. I barely remember being 10, and that's kind of where things picked back up.
Okay.
At this point, I had moved around a few times. Apparently, a lady took me in and adopted me at a certain point, and that's how I got my last name, Bowen.
Oh, okay.
My original last name was I was originally born Anthony Wayne Machoki.
Machoki?
Yeah, Machoki. Don't ask me how to spell it.
Me neither.
But I was Anthony Wayne Machoki, but I didn't know how to spell it. So the day I was adopted, I asked the judge. First of all, I didn't know how to spell Anthony, so I asked the judge to change it to Tony.
Got it.
So he, we did that, and then it was Bowen. Apparently, there was an incident. I went manic. My foster mom, or the lady who adopted me, tried restraining me. The school that I was going to, I'm sorry, I jump around.
That's all right. What age is this again?
Probably 10-ish or so.
All right.
8, 10, somewhere. I kind of, it's fuzzy.
It's all good. I get it. I get it.
I was going to this special school for people with mental disabilities and stuff of that nature. and by Western State in Lakewood, Washington. And when a kid acts out or something, they have a way they restrain the child, but they don't do it in a way that's harming. It's just they kind of hover over the child by holding their arms and legs down, but they're not sitting or anything. And I told the lady adopted me that about this, and one day I refused to do all this yard work because I was pretty much a slave to her. She was really heavy. She was like 400 pounds. All she'd do was lay in her bed all day. And I was mowing the lawn, pulling the weeds, washing the car, cooking food, cleaning the bathroom. I did everything. Yeah. And, I was basically taking care of myself. And one day I wanted to be a kid. I just wanted to play some video games.
Exactly. Yeah.
And she told me to go do this and that and the other. And I told her no. And she came out, threw me on the floor, sat on me. And I, with all her weight, and dug her fingernails into my arm and drew blood, and I was bleeding. And at some point, I don't know how, but I got the strength and I pushed her off me. And I ran to the kitchen and grabbed a really long carving knife. And I wasn't going to stab her or anything, but I chased her into her room. She shut the door. I stabbed the knife through the door a few times, threw the knife away, trashed the whole house completely. And when I mean trash, I mean everything I saw. I broke windows, plates, everything. I poured water on the computer after turning it on, watched it fizz, and, the cops came, I hid. I ended up getting 9 officers with shotguns, dog, handguns. I'm like 8, 9 years old. They take me to Fairfax Mental Ward for Children. I spent, I don't know, a year and a half there with padded rooms, and I was mistreated there. Electric shock therapy.
Wait a minute. Hold on. Electroshock therapy? The whole, like we see in the movies, the whole deal?
Yeah, I had that.
How long was that?
I was there for a year and a half, so like every once in a while they would do tests on me, and I talked to my sleep apparently with having post-traumatic stress from seeing the murder and being molested and all that stuff.
Of course.
So I would wake up in the middle of the night with them grabbing me and hauling me off into a cement room with the cement bed and no blanket, no pillow, no nothing, and they would just throw me in there, and I'd be in there all night and into the next day. Or they'd throw me in the padded room, like you see in the movies with, no straitjacket though. I never had a straitjacket. But anyways, after a year and a half, I was released and put back into the lady who adopted me. And I ended up doing the same thing again shortly after and did another 6 months. By this time, this is when they put me back in foster care. I'm probably 10, 11 years old. Moved around, ended up in a home, in Tacoma, very gang-affiliated. This is my first taste of gang life.
Okay.
I saw, this is, 95, 96, Tupac, Biggie, that whole era was going around. The people I was staying with, their sons and family and cousins, whatever, they were into gang Bloods. And the area I was Bloods.
Okay.
And so I was, so I saw that lifestyle and what that was like, drugs and stuff that went into that. And then...
did you get involved in it?
Not at this point. Okay. I wasn't affiliated or was into it or anything. Not until I got into high school.
Okay.
So I bounced around a handful more times. Landed. It's kind of hard for me to remember everything.
Sure.
But,
it's fine. It's fine.
I ended up, at the same time, I didn't really have a church life at first. Some of the foster homes went to church, some of them didn't. But I've been to like Buddhist church and Catholic churches, and I visited a Mormon church a couple times because one of the homes, they didn't push it on me.
Yeah.
The worst, like I said, the worst home I was at was the Bakers, and I was there for 3.5 years. Okay. And just, if I didn't take out the trash, they would dump the trash in my bed, and I would have to sleep in the trash all night. And, if I talked or whatever, they would make us, we lived in between these two hills, and so we would, I'd sleep in my boxes and a t-shirt, and we'd have to run with no shoes on or anything, just up and down 15 laps. And
what was their point of that?
Punishment.
Okay, so if you didn't do it, if you didn't do your chores, then
No,
Or-
that was just talking in my sleep, or just, whatever. They would wake us up and make us run hills at 2:00 in the morning. 15
For
laps.
talking in your sleep?
For talking in our sleep, because they thought we were talking, awake. If I didn't feed the dog, they didn't feed me. If I didn't change the drinking water, they'd make me drink the water out of the dog bowl. And
so this was 3.5 years at the Bakers, and this is around what age now? 12 to 15?
I'm like 12, 13,
okay.
11 years old.
Okay.
I mean, I could go into more detail.
Yeah, no, we'd be here all
Yeah.
day if we. But so to kind of take us to the closing end of the foster care life.
Oh, okay.
What was
well,
that?
I was going to talk about my.
Oh, go ahead.
When I was 13, I went to the Boys and Girls Club, or People's Center. No, the People's Center in Tacoma.
Okay.
And I accidentally scratched a kid playing tag, and 9 kids jumped me. And I was the only white kid.
Oh.
And all black.
All black, yeah.
All community.
Yeah.
And in Hilltop in Tacoma.
Oh,
and
Tacoma.
I tried defending myself. I didn't want to die because 2 weeks prior, there's a whole bunch of kids jumped a guy in the park at Wright's Park and killed him and robbed him.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm thinking this is about to happen to me. So I fought back, and I put one in the hospital. The others ran away. I ended up putting one in a chokehold, and Black kind of had tunnel vision, and he had to bite me in my arm, took a piece of my skin, and that snapped me out of it. Didn't know his brother was affiliated with Crips, because this was the area for Crips. And he went and told his brother. About an hour later, they came with all his homies, and they tried to beat me up. And the director of the facility took me into a room that they couldn't get me until the cops came, which was like 2 hours later. And they finally arrested me, took me to Raymond Hall Detention Center. I did 6 months. They finally charged me with 9 counts of assault 3. I was found guilty because the guy went to a hospital, got his head split, and the other kid they said I was the aggressor in this whole situation. They had witnesses,
9 kids against you, and you're the aggressor.
Yeah. So apparently I started the whole fight and whatever, and it was a racist thing.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
Whatever, and I ended up getting charged for that, and I got sentenced to a year and 2 weeks. So they sent me to Maple Lane. And I ended up doing a year and 2 weeks in Maple Lane, which is a juvenile prison in Centralia, Washington. Got out, went to a group home in Hilltop, and that's when I went to high school at Stadium High School at this point. And mind you, this is skipping quite a bit, but anyways,
that's all good.
So I ended up going to high school.
So is this now towards the end of is this towards the end of your foster care experience?
No. Well, I was in a group home, and then I got put back into foster care about 16.
Okay. Go ahead. Sorry.
So I was in a group home for a year, and at one point they were like, "Oh, we need to put you in, back in foster care. Group home's not working out." I don't know why, but when I was 15, my mom died. I came home from school. And they said, "Hey, we need to talk to you." The state people were there, and they said, "Hey, we're granting you emergency visitation rights to your biological mom. She's not doing well." I went to the hospital thinking she was, going to be awake and a lot alert and everything. I was going to meet her for the first time, and from my first memory.
From your first memory. Okay.
So I haven't seen her. My last memory is we were at some apartment in downtown Tacoma. And after going to McDonald's, that's my last memory of her. And I was like probably right before I went to foster care at 4.
Okay.
So, here I am 15, thinking I'm going to see my mom, visitating with her. I get there and she's in a coma. Yeah. She has hepatitis B, jaundice, her liver's shutting down, kidneys are shutting down. The next day, developed into hepatitis A. And still in a coma, and the third day she ended up having hepatitis C. Okay. So she ended up getting A, B, and C. My grandma decided to take her off life support, and everybody came and said goodbye. Family came from California, everything, and I, was the only one hanging on because I haven't seen her in my whole life. Right. So finally, I would say it was 11 o'clock at night. My mom's laying there. She's still, she had this breathing thing that, she would, and then every once in a while, like that. And
Right.
I was just laying there, and I finally said, you know what, Mom, go ahead and go. I love you. Where you're going is going to be a better place. And, I finally said goodbye to her. And about 11:45, I looked over and I said, love you, Mom. And she took one of those deep breaths that I was talking about. And then she, with a kind of a slight smile on her face. And I didn't, it didn't click. That was her last breath. And this is going to be funny, kind of. I went to the bathroom and I was going number 2. And I was sitting there. And it dawned on me while I'm going to number 2 that, wait, that was the last breath. So I finished and ran out and checked. They had those the stethoscopes or whatever.
Yeah.
Listen for her heart and everything. And I didn't hear a heartbeat, so I opened the door and the nurse saw my face and knew right away that she was gone. They came in and did their check, and the doctor came in and pronounced 11:45 p.m. April 6th.
Okay.
Tuesday.
Dang, you remember it.
So yeah, she was cremated and everything. I ended up going. I was still at the group home, but shortly after I go into foster care, I'm in high school, and when I was 17, this is the last thing before I came out of. I was 17. Okay. This was my first major injury. I watched a lot of wrestling, WWE.
No, I was a huge fan, yeah.
Okay, so me and my foster brother at the time were like, hey, I wonder, do these submission holds work? They actually,
they do.
Okay, does that, how do I know? And so, we were doing like the figure 4.
Yes,
and,
sharpshooters
and all these different. Well, it was my turn, and he was like, let's see if the walls of Jericho work.
Oh, that's... Yeah.
And so I was kind of big. I was always a big guy. I don't know how. I was probably 280, 290 in high school. I was 17.
Dang.
I was a football player at
That's
Stadium
crazy.
High School, left guard, strong side. Nobody got through. I was a wall. And, and he couldn't flip me on my back and roll me over like they do on TV.
Right.
So he just had me get on my stomach, and he just grabbed my legs and leaned back. And, and I was like, okay, and I was like, and he was like, well, let me try something. So he stepped back, jumped up in the air, and dropped his knees in the small of my back, and causing my legs to come all the way over my head. So I'm literally looking at my feet as if I was standing.
That's insane.
And so my back literally folded up like a pretzel, like you see in like Jason, one of the Jason movies where he folds the bed, up in the backwards in there. Yeah. So my legs did that, and they stuck like that for it felt like forever, but it was probably 5-10 seconds, and then they snapped back. And I was paralyzed from the waist down for about 5 hours. Paramedics came, took me to the hospital, and the scariest part was I'm strapped to the backboard, and they're like, we're gonna take you to the trauma room, and you're gonna have a bunch of these people, the doctors, nurses, they're gonna be cutting your clothes off, doing all this stuff. And I've seen it on TV, but I've never experienced it. And sure enough, they get me in there. And as soon as they get me in there, there's I don't know, nurses and doctors, and they're ripping my clothes off, sticking IVs and drawing blood all at the same time, and doing this, checking that, C-collar and all that stuff.
Everything.
And, and a couple hours later, they need me to go to the bathroom, and I couldn't go.
Okay.
So they had to give me a catheter, and I'll spare the details.
Yeah,
but anyways, as they give me the catheter, I end up getting a cramp in both my thighs and both my calves all at the same time. So not only do I feel the pinch of the catheter, I get all the other stuff. So I'm screaming off the top of my lungs like I'm being murdered. Yeah. And they're like, oh, you got his feeling back in his legs. So yeah. I end up being strapped. I'm speeding up here. I was strapped to a backboard for 2 days because of my swelling in my back. And I was too heavy for the MRI machine, so they had to wait to get a special MRI, and they took me somewhere. And sure enough, I had sprained my back, dislocated my disc in my lower back. I don't know which number or whatever it's called, but it was my lower disc had dislocated. I had torn some ligaments and muscles and tendons, but not enough to do surgery. Okay. I spent 3 to 4 weeks in the hospital. Had to learn how to walk again, and everything. And then, so I went in one last foster home. I aged out at 18.
Okay.
And this is, coming to the...
What was like after foster care? So now we're post foster care.
Yeah, so I got out on my 18th birthday. They came and knocked on the door and, was like, you're 18 now. You're no longer a ward of the state. You got to go. And the plan was the foster home that I was staying at, which I was off and on since I was 10. They kind of knew my, since I was 10-year-old. And that was the last foster home I was in, the Durants. And they didn't treat me like a foster kid. So when they introduced me, they would say, hey, this is my son. And they're black and I'm white. And so people would look at me like, wait a minute, how's that your son? Okay, it's my foster son, but we don't,
Right.
announce him like that. So anyways, they wanted to keep me a little bit, help me out, whatever, but the state showed up and I had to go. So they took me to a hotel down the road and gave me some money, paid for a couple nights at a hotel, hugged me and said, good luck. And I stayed in a hotel for a couple weeks while going to high school at Stadium High School in Tacoma. And then eventually I ended up living in the park right down the road from the high school for a little while. And I was still going, so I'd have all my luggage and I'd go to school really early. They'd let me in before everybody else, store my stuff in a spare closet they had down in the gym. Showered in the boys' locker room, and then I'd go to class and, eat and everything. And then at the end of the day, when I had to leave campus, I'd find somewhere at the park and take all my clothes out and make like a nest. Cover me up. Yeah. And that was my way of staying warm at night. And I did that for a couple weeks. Mm-hmm. And then my grandma got me into a shared housing program, which is, basically, it's a house, you pay for a room, rent a room out, but you share the common area. Sure. And so I got into that, but because of going to high school while being homeless for a while, I got this award called the Paradigm Award. And it was for overcoming barriers and obstacles while attending school. Okay. So I got to meet the governor. I met the mayor of Pierce County, the president of the school board, I think it was. And they picked like 5 kids from different schools. And so there was elementary, middle school, and high school, and 5 kids one from each high school, one from each, so on and so forth. So we had this big old dinner, and we got a banquet kind of thing, and there was a whole form. I wasn't in a tuxedo or anything, but we were in this. Yeah. It was this big old thing. I got to shake the hands and got this award, and and then anyway, so I was in the shared housing for a little bit. Until I was about 19, 20. Still trying to go to high school. I was a super, super senior. It was really hard for me because I've never lived on my own. I went through 3 of these shared housing deals. And this is when I started getting into gang life. Okay. This is when I started, affiliating with some gang members. I got involved in we call it a clique, but people were calling it a gang, but it was a 253 Playboys. We didn't have any colors or anything, but we had Playboy signs and all these different things, which I'm not going to show. And we did all, we were like the players. We had ladies all the time and women, and going to strip clubs and all that kind of stuff, and in and out of that lifestyle. So until I turned about 19, and my school was like, look, you're 19 years old, you're almost 20. It's kind of odd that you're hanging around 15, 16-year-olds. You can't be dating them. You're almost 21. You're pretty close. So they kicked me out, said I couldn't go to high school anymore. And this is kind of right around this, like I said, my mom died when I was 15. So I'm just now starting to deal with my mom's death, and this is where things kind of go sideways in life, health-wise. Health-wise, okay. I went from, I was kind of stocky, 275, 290. Sure. Football player. I had muscle tone. I looked like a Hulk. I had pictures at one point that I lost on my brother in Christ. He had a fire a couple months ago, and I lost everything recently, but that's later.
What was the health scare that happened?
So, I don't remember exactly the age, but I was close to 20 to 21, somewhere in there. Mm-hmm. At this point, I had given up on life, basically. I went from 275, 290 to about 582 pounds. I was eating once or twice a day. if you ever seen the show Super Size Me, I was able to do the math of how much soda I was drinking based on the calculation you did and whatnot in the soda. And after I did the calculation, and I'll get to the whole wife and whatever. Anyways, it come to find out I was literally drinking 5 gallons or if not more of soda a day.
5 gallons?
5 gallons.
5 gallons of soda?
5 gallons, if not more, a day.
Why?
And so I would,
go ahead.
I would drink, I'd start off with a 24-pack of soda, 2 of them in the morning. I'd go see a movie. This is just to give you an example. So that's 2 in the morning.
Okay.
And then on the way to the movie or something, I'd go to 7-Eleven or something and get 2 1-liter bottles and drink those on the way to the movie, and then get a large refillable soda while I'm there and popcorn and stuff. And then I'd go to McDonald's right afterwards and get a Big Mac, big and tasty, large fry, or supersize back then, and drink that. And then on the way back, get 2 more 2 liters on the way back, and then stop at the store and get 2 more 24 packs, and then drink those by the,
Hold on 1 second. So you went from 278 or whatever, 280 to 582. And I missed something. What triggered this for you to start drinking all this soda and all?
I gave up. I finally started dealing with my mom's passing.
Oh, okay. So this is how you're dealing with the grief.
Yeah, I actually started dealing with it, and I actually, so I gave up.
I see.
I see. Right before I found out about the scare, I was at the waterfront downtown in Tacoma, and I was yelling at God and screaming at God. Again, I'm in and out of foster home. Mm-hmm. One of the foster homes, I had a vision of hell and everything. I can tell that story either now or another time. But I was yelling at God. I believed in Him and everything, and I was like, how could you take Him from me? How could you take her from me? I prayed for all those years that I would see her again, and then He took her from me and everything, and I stopped yelling at God, and I was looking out at the